to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you guys for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for your love, for your support. If you are new to the channel, you're welcome. If you have not subscribed, please, I would appreciate for you to hit on the subscribe button and then hit the bell on the side to get an update. And then if you want to become a member of Stylish Naija channel, you can see a join button. Just click on the join button and then see what it entails to become a member. Okay guys, so in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew this blouse. So you can see it is a beautiful blouse with front zip allowance, with a front zipper rather. So that's what we're going to learn how to cut and sew today. It is a simple dress. So the first thing, I have my pattern paper here. This is the fabric that I'm going to be making use of. I have 4 yards of this Ankara fabric here, so I'll just keep that on the side. And then here I have my pattern paper, which I already have some lines on the pattern paper, which I'm going to explain. So the first line I have here is my shoulder line. This is like the start line. And then the next line we have here is our bust point line. So that's our bust point, which is 11 inches. And then from the bust point, we have the under bust line, which is 14. That's under bust. And then our half cut is 17, which is like the waist. So the measurement that we're using for the bust, we are using 40 inches. The under bust is 33, and then the half cut we're using 34. So these are the basic measurements. So for this pattern, I can choose to use any bustier pattern of my choice. So for this, I'll use a shoulder dart bustier pattern. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do now, I'm going to use my shoulder. The shoulder measurement I'm making use of is 15 inches. So I'll mark my 15, I'll divide that into 2. Before then, since our zip is going to be in the front, we're going to mark out our zip allowance, so which I'm going to use 2 inches. So I'll mark my 2 inches like this in front of my pattern like this, and then I'm going to connect it with a straight ruler. Okay, so this is my zip allowance. So all of my measurement now, I'm going to start from this point. Okay, so for the shoulder, I'm using 15, like I said. 15 divided by 2, I'm going to have 7.5. I'll mark my 7.5 here, and then I'll add just 1 inch for my allowance, which is okay. So from this point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. I'll slip that into the shoulder line like this, and then from this point, I'm going to mark half of my armhole measurement. So half of my armhole is 8. The full armhole is 16. So 8 plus 8, 16. So I'll mark it here, and then I'll connect it with a straight ruler also. And then the next thing, I'm going to mark half of 8 here, and then I will just use my curve to create a shoulder, an armhole like this. Okay, so the next thing now, I'm going to mark my dart. I'll take out my dart. So for the dart, my dart is 8 inches. I'll divide that into 2, which is 4 inches. I'll mark that 4 inches across to the shoulder line. Okay, no, I'll leave it here. I'll just connect it here. We'll work on the shoulder later. So I'll connect it like this. And then the next measurement that I'm going to add now, I'm going to take out my dart. So in taking out my dart, I'll come to this part like this. I'll measure 2 inches on my under bust line, and then that's 2 inches. And then I'll come to my waistline also. I'll just repeat that 2 inches here like this. So from my under bust line, here's what I'm going to do. I'll connect, so you can see what I'm doing. I'll connect this like this. Okay, okay, so you can see I'll connect it to my bust point line like this. And then from this part, I'm going to come down. I'll just do this with my ruler. So the next thing, on my shoulder line, I'm going to take my shoulder. So what do I have here? So I have about 8.5. I'll divide that into 2, and then I'll place it like this. Okay, I'll place it like that. So from this point, I'm just going to use, I'm going to do this. Okay, so because I want my shoulder, I want it to have a little bit of allowance, I'm going to come to this part, so this right hand part. So I just want to take out a little bit of inch from this part. So I can decide to take out half of an inch or 1 inch from that part. So after doing that, I'm going to take this like this, and then I'm going to like blend this into that line. Okay, so you can see this now gives it a kind of a defined curve. So remember this 1 inch that I took out, I'm going to place that on my armhole area. As I'll place it, I'll bring it back into my pattern. So how do I do that? Here's what I'm just going to do like this, and then that I'll still eliminate later. So after this, the next thing I'm going to do now, take out my full body measurement. So remember our 40 inches for the bust. When we divide 40 into 4, we're going to have 10 inches. So I'll mark my 10 inches here, and then I'll add my stitching allowance, which I will use 3 inches for my stitching allowance. I'll mark that 3 inches here. So my armhole, I'll just blend it into this point like this, and then I'll mark this here. So my under bust is 33. When I divide 33, I'm going to into 4, I'm going to have 8.25. So I'll come to this point like this. Remember, we have allowance here, which we're going to bring back. Okay. So this is 8.25 here. And then I'll measure what I have here. So after everything, this allowance is like 1.5 that came out. It's supposed to be 2, but somehow it's 1.5 because of the draft. So I'll bring that back into my pattern, and then I'm going to add my stitching allowance, which I'm using the same 3 inches that I used earlier on. So from this point, I'm just going to mark this. I'm just using, I will blend it with my ruler later. So the next measurement I'm taking is my waist measurement, which is 34, which is 8.5. So you can see my 8.5 here, and then this my 2 inches of my allowance. I'll bring that back, and then I'll add my 3 inches for my stitching allowance. So all of this now I will connect with my ruler like this. So you can see how easy this is, right? So the next thing now, we're going to cut this out. Because I'm not going to add a zip to the back, so that my extra 2 inches, I'm going to fold this inside because I want to cut out the back pattern before I open up my bust here. Okay, so I'll place this now and then cut out the back pattern. Okay guys, so you can see, so I've cut out my back pattern. So this is my back pattern. The next thing I'm going to cut now, I'm going to cut out the front. So to cut out the front, I'm going to open this. So before I do that, I'm going to cut out my dart. So here. So for this part, there's a way I'm going to shape this zip allowance part. I'm not going to do it on my pattern paper, but there's a way I'm going to shape it to give it one kind of shape. You understand? So literally my zip allowance is going to be like this. That's for the front, to give that front one kind of snatch waist at that front. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you guys how to do it when we are doing it on the fabric, when we're doing the final measurement, the final fittings. Okay, so this, I'm going to transfer all of this to my fabric right now, cut out my front piece, and then okay guys, so I finished cutting out all of my pieces. So the next thing I'm going to do now, cut out the lining, and then we'll go back to the machine. So I'll show you how to couple this table. So we're going to start stitching now. So you can see my bust here. So I've added my padding to it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to start stitching. In case you don't know how to pad, I have a video already on my channel. So I'm going to start stitching. So this is the right one. I'll start stitching from the down. So for the back, the center front, I added lace. I just added the lace. I just stitched it just to give it a kind of style for the front. So I'm going to stitch now. I'll place this like this, and then I'll stitch. I'll use half of an inch to stitch. So I'm going to finish that off and then I'll do the same thing to the other side. Okay guys, so after stitching, so you can see how our bustier looks like. It came out really fine, perfect. You can see the cups area. You can see it's well molded. So the next thing we're going to do now, I'm going to place the back and the front together, and then we're going to do the neckline. Okay, so for the back piece, because I want the back to be perfect, I just ran a stitch like to do a contour at the back piece, even though I'm not adding a zip, just to give it so it will not swell or pop up. So that's why I did this. So I'm going to take my front piece now. I'll place it here and then I'll cut out my neckline. Okay, so the next thing now, I'm going to add the neckline. So you remember this is my zip allowance. So I'm going to start measuring from this point. So the wideness of my neckline that I'm going to use, I'll use 3 inches of it. So for the depth of the neckline, I'm going to make it, I'll use about 6 inches for the depth of the neckline. So my neckline is just going to be a round neckline like this. And then for the back part of my neckline, this is the back, I'm going to come down by 2 inches or 1.5 inches, and then I'll cut this open. And then the next thing, I'm going to turn this with my lining. As I'll turn the front piece with my lining and then turn the back piece also with my lining, and then we'll come back and show you how to do the sleeves. Okay, so I finished stitching, so you can see I've turned it with the lining. So these are the 2 piece. So the next thing now, we're going to take in our zip allowance. So in taking in our zip allowance, I'm going to come to this point like this. I'll measure my bust point line and then measure my under bust point line. Okay, you know our zip, we use 2 inches for the allowance. So I'm going to mark my 2 inches like this. So when I get to the center part, I'll take it in, I'll make it 2.25, and then that's that bust point. And then on the down part, I'll come back to 2. So at the end of the day, my zip allowance is going to run like this. So you can see a kind of like it's not straight. So with this, it will help that stomach area to be tight, and then it will look beautiful. Okay, so this is how I'm going to stitch. So I'll join both of them together now, and then join the back and the front together also. Okay, so you can see how beautiful it is looking after stitching. So you can see. So this is where we'll fix our zip. When we're done, it came out fine. I like, so you can see the bust area. So the next thing, I'm going to join my back piece and my front piece together now on the shoulder, and then I'll bring it back for us to, I'll join the shoulder and then join the side, and then we'll come back and cut out the sleeves. Now the next thing we're going to do, so you can see after joining it on the zip allowance, this is how it will look like. It will look like. Okay, so the next thing is for us to cut the sleeve. So the sleeve, there's a way we're going to cut this sleeve. So the first thing to do, so if you notice, this kind of sleeve is actually done in 2 ways. There are some that you can just decide to stitch just a little bit outside of your round sleeve, but this one on the picture was actually done on the round sleeve. Okay, that's, it was stitched here like this. So but mine, I'm going to stitch my own outside just a little bit. That's like a top stitch on top. So in order for me to do that, what I will do, I'm going to measure my sleeve. That's after shaping your sleeve, I'm just going to measure it round like this to give me the exact amount that I need for it. So after measuring, so I had about 22 inches, which is okay. So I had about 22 inches. So it's just 22 inches that I'm going to use to cut out the sleeve. So I'm going to use a pattern paper first. So you can see how I folded my pattern. So the next thing, this part is where my armhole is going to be. This is the armhole area, and then this part is the edge, and then this part like this is the shoulder part. That's the part that will come out. Okay, so next thing we're going to do now, I'm going to use my armhole measurement. So you know we measure 22. When you divide 22 into 2, we're going to have 11 inches. So I'll just make it 12. So this is my 12 inches here. So you notice I'm going to mark it. I'm not marking it straight. So it is not entirely straight. Okay, because my angle is not straight either. So the next thing now, this is where the length of my sleeve is going to be. That's on the shoulder part, that coming out. So I'll mark 8 inches. At the end of the day, it's going to be 7. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do depends on how wide I want this down part to be. I'm going to take this. So for the down part, I want it to be like 2 inches. So I'll just make it 2.5 on this part. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to curve this. So I'll use a pattern curve to actually do this. So I'm going to curve it like this. And then I'll highlight it for you to see. So we're going to check it on our sleeve before we continue, before you transfer to your fabric. So guys, you can see how this looks like. So you see that we got it. Excuse me. So this part is still a little bit too wide for me. So like I said, mine, I'm just going to stitch it here like this. So it's going to stay like this. So this part is a little bit too wide, so I can still give it a little bit of trim. So this looks good and okay. So you can see. So it's going to stay, it's just going to stay like this. So the next thing now I'm going to do, I'm going to transfer this on my fabric. I'll cut my fabric, I'll cut my lining, and then I'll cut a hairstay on it, so to give it that structure. Okay guys, so this is it after ironing. So if you want it, depends on how strong you want it to be. So you can use a stronger stay for this, okay? So the next thing, I will go and stitch it. So this is how I'm going to stitch it. I'll stitch here. So this is the part that will stay on the shoulder part. So this part, I'm not going to stitch it. I'll just stitch it round like this. So here also stitch and then turn it from this part, iron it down, and then come back and show you how to fix it. Okay guys, so you can see, so I finished ironing. So this is how it looks like. So the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this. So I'll take the center of this, I'll just notch it here, and then I'll take this like this here on top, on the shoulder point, that notch point. I'll place it here, just so, depends on how. So I just want to come in from my shoulder. I'll just come in like 1 inch. So I'll take this and then I'm going to stitch it from the inside like this. So it's going to stay, it's just going to run like this, and it will get to this point. So when I'm done, I'll just flip it and give it a good press. Okay, so I'll do that and then come back and show you how it looks like. Okay guys, so at the end of the day, after fixing the sleeve, you can see how it looks like. You can see it came out really fine. So you can see the sleeve. So depending on how long you want your sleeve to be, there are some that you can even start it from here and run it all along. So you can see how the inside looks like. So if you don't want to add another sleeve inside, you can just pipe the armhole. So you can see it looks good. So for this tutorial, I'm going to stop this tutorial here now. I'm not going to show the peplum. So I'll do the peplum, I'll do it in another video. So because the video is getting too long. So for those that don't want to, that just want to watch this part, they can actually go ahead and watch it. So thank you so much. If you find this video helpful, please hit on the like button, and if you have not subscribed to my channel already, please, I would appreciate for you to hit on the subscribe button. Thank you so much guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.